Welcome. With Avish's help, we're starting a new Perek Yud Aleph of Ein Yaakov in Masechta Shabbos. So Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Braisa that Mekoshesh Zet Tzlaf. We learned that there was a person who was Mekoshesh Eitzim, which was a forbidden act, which he was doing in the desert on Shabbos, and because of that, he was judged for skila, which is a death penalty that obviously is not easily administered. But if there are two witnesses that see someone violating Shabbos, and in advance he was warned not to do it, and they warn him and tell him what the punishment is if he violates that, and they still do it, then he gets the death penalty. In this case, it's skila, which is a process of stoning. It's very rare that such a thing would happen. It's very hard for it to actually prove that the witnesses both saw him and gave him the warning. He has to know that it's Shabbos. He has to know what the punishment is. He has to know that they're seeing him, and so on. There's a lot of different. He doesn't have to know that they're seeing him, but he has to be forewarned. There's a lot of details here that have to take place. My point is that it's very rare that it should occur. But Torah tells us that there was such a case in the desert, and but it doesn't say who it was. It says there was a person. So the Gemara tells us it was Tzlafchad. It was a man named Tzlafchad.
His daughters.
Now Tzlafchad had daughters, but this is the father of the daughters.
He had 5 daughters?
Yes, very good. So this is the father. Now, v'chein hu emer, he similarly says in the pasuk, Vayiyu v'nei Yisrael b'midbar v'gemer, the Jewish people were in the desert, and somebody did this mekoshesh eitzim, this forbidden work with the pieces of wood. Ulahalan hu emer, and he says later, Avinu meis b'midbar. So when the Torah says, in one place, he was in the desert, but they were in the desert, and there was a mekoshesh, and then when the daughters,
was no what, Rabbi?
someone that was chopping the wood,
Okay.
and then or gathering the wood, and then afterwards, when the daughters come to Moshe Rabbeinu and they're asking for their portion of land, their father's portion, they say, "Our father died in the desert." So we learn desert. Torah uses the term twice in this context of Bamidbar, Mala Halon Slavcha, just like when they say our father died in the desert and they're talking about Slavchad, we deduce from there that the person that was being Mekoshesh Eitzim, the one that was violating the prohibition with the wood, on Shabbos was also the man named Slavchad. This is called a Gzeira Shava, where you find in 2 different verses a similar word, and you could apply or deduce from one over the other. So just like the first one, the second one talks about Slavchad, the first time it's also referring to a man named Slavchad. So now the cat is out of the hat, and we know who the person is. Torah did not tell us who it was. There was a guy who was working with wood, but now we know who it is. It's Slavchad. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. This is all the words of Rabbi Akiva. He is the one. You want to turn off your phone? He is the one that tells us about it, and now we know that it was Slavchad.
Sorry.
Omar le Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So the Torah didn't tell us who it was. It just told us we're going to make a mikvah. The Torah told us that it was a guy, and Rabbi Akiva learns from the pasuk that it was Slavchad, right? Because both places say Bamidbar. And now,
You want to turn the sound down?
I'm trying to turn it off.
station identification.
What happened to his wife?
It doesn't say. It's a mystery.
You want to do? See if I can find it.
Well, you should probably get your yarmulke back.
I'm looking for it.
Good, very good. Okay.
How did you get it?
Well, that's a good question. So this is Rabbi Akiva is the one that told us who it was. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said, Akiva, he turns to Rabbi Akiva and he said, Ben kach uven kach ata asid litein esadin, which means, either way, you're in trouble. Why? Why are you in trouble?
I don't know how to turn it off. Oh, that's a different.
Im kidvarecha,
different phone
if
than I
it's
have.
true that it was indeed Slavchad who was the one that violated it, HaTorah kisatu v'ata megala isay. The Torah decided to hide who was the culprit. And for whatever reason, Torah felt that he deserves not to be publicized. Who's the one that was guilty for all time? We don't have to know who it was. A guy. Let's say it was him. But Torah hid it. And you went and you just told everyone that it was Slavchad. So you're going to be in trouble for that. In other words, Ata Asa Litin Esadin,
Who?
Rabbi Akiva,
Here you go.
you're going to have to basically stand judgment for what you just did. And if it's not true, let's assume that your deduction is not correct, and it was not Slavchad. You are now
Yet.
bad mouthing that tzaddik. We'll start a tech support soon.
No, it won't let you turn off.
Put it silence on.
Turn off.
Sorry, Rabbi.
It's okay.
Turn off.
It's Chedesh Adar. We have music.
Plus up there. Yeah.
Would that be Lashon Hara though?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
This is really worse because he's making up a story, which is not true.
Yeah.
So
that's horrible.
if it's true, then Torah decided not to share the details, and if Akiva let it out. And if it's not true, then you're just creating a bad name for somebody who it's not fair.
Are you sure?
Am I sure
Yeah.
that what?
They created the bad. Maybe he was creating a good name
What's good about violating Shabbos?
because the wood gatherer did it intentionally, knowing the consequence, in order to teach Klal Israel not to break Shabbos.
Okay.
So
I
he
hear
did
you.
it for a good reason. He sacrificed
Could be.
his life to teach. See, you
Okay.
see, obey Shabbos, or see what will happen to you.
I hear you. Okay.
And it's a good reason.
That's the deeper
And-
meaning. But the Yehuda Ben Beseira is talking on the surface level,
Okay. Yeah.
and you're going a little bit deeper.
Well, that's how I learned this.
Very good. Keep it up. Now, Lahagama Gzeira Shava. So he says, 1 second. I didn't do anything wrong. I learned it from a Gzeira Shava, which is, as mentioned, it's a principle of how you could learn laws. I didn't make up any stories. I saw 2 words. It says Bamidbar, Bamidbar. Over there, Torah tells us it's Lavchad. It uses the same type of wording here. It's a normal way of learning halacha, and learning information. I'm not making up any stories. There's no problem. So he says, Gzeira Shava lei gamir. We did not learn Gzeira Shava. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, who was the one that told Rabbi Akiva, Shmuel Gaon, who told Rabbi Akiva not to worry. I mean, they told Rabbi Akiva, either way you're liable, you're going to stand judgment. He says, it's a nice Gzeira Shava, but we didn't learn this Gzeira Shava. You can't just come up one day and say, hey, I see 2 words that are similar, I'm going to learn out of it. There's a tradition. And if you weren't taught this from your teachers, you can't make this up. That's number 1. Number 2, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira knew the amount of Gzeira Shavas that exist in Torah. There's a certain number of how many there are. And this one is not one of those numbers. So, this is a Gzeira Shava, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, I don't have such a tradition. So, you're just coming up with something which has no basis for it. Ela mehecha havu. If so, then, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, why did this man die? Slavchad, we know, died. Because the daughters came to Moshe Rabbeinu and they said that their father died. Rabbi Akiva said he was the one that was doing the wood chopping. But if you're proving that he wasn't the one, then why did he actually die? So he says he was from the Ma'apilin. When the Yidden were told that they're staying in the desert because they rebelled and said, we don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. And the punishment that's going to happen, they're going to end up staying and passing away in the desert, and their children, the next generation, are the ones that are going to go into Eretz Yisrael. There was a group of Yidden who said, oh, you know what, forget it, we're going. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, you're not going. They said, well, just go to Israel, it's fine, we're ready to go. We made a mistake. And they went, and unfortunately, they were attacked by Amalek, who killed them. So, this man, Slavchad, who died, he was one of these people that said, no, we're going to Israel, even though they were told by Moshe Rabbeinu, now is not the time. So, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says that's a much less severe sin or crime than breaking Shabbos. Breaking Shabbos would be, why would you badmouth him that way? Torah is not telling you who it was, and it's not even what he did. He did something wrong, and he was punished, but it's not the same level. Moshe Rabbeinu said, don't go to Eretz Yisrael, and he went to Eretz Yisrael. He tried to go. He wasn't violating a biblical commandment. They probably felt that being that they complained and they said no, we have to show some commitment. We have to push ourselves. We have to say we're going to do it anyways, etc. So yes, he did something, and something wrong, but it's not violating Shabbos in a public way, in the manner that it was just described. Okay. There's a similar thing which we learn, another argument between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Rabbi Akiva, to explain another story that happened in the Torah. And again, you find one is perhaps being a little bit more strict and one is being more lenient. I just want to say that Rabbi Akiva is the one that said that V'ahavta l'reacha kamecha, love your fellow like yourself, is a great principle in the Torah. So it's not that he was lacking or missing in Ahavas Yisrael. He was definitely someone who loved his fellow and went out of his way for his fellow. We're talking about understanding the meaning or the reasoning behind certain things, learning from it, but it's not that God already was lacking in this mitzvah of love your fellow like yourself. So a similar argument we have regarding another story. It says, "Vayichar af Hashem bam vayelach." There was a story that Miriam turned to her brother Aaron, and she said, "Do you know that our brother Moshe is not married to his wife Tzipora? They separated." What happened was, when there were two people that were prophesying in the desert, Tzipora, Moshe's wife, heard about it, and she told Miriam, Moshe's sister or sister-in-law, he's like, "Oh, I feel bad for their wives." Why? Because they're going to separate from their wives like my husband separated from me. Now, nobody knew that. But she thought all prophets are not married, which is not true. In Yiddishkeit, in Torah, in tradition, being married is a mitzvah. And it's not like separating makes you holier in some way. The Kohen Gadol, high priest, he could only be a Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash and serve on Yom Kippur if he's married. We don't see it as a minus. There are other religions, perhaps, that they say that the higher they up on the rank, they're not married. But in Torah, that is the case. Moshe Rabbeinu was different because Moshe Rabbeinu had to be available constantly for Hashem. He was a different level of a prophet. And with zero notice, Hashem could just call out to him. So for that reason, he separated from Tzipora. But a regular prophet, other prophets throughout the generations, did not separate from their wives. But be it as it may, Tzipora thought, she just knew about her own case. And when she heard there's two other prophets, she said, "Oh, I feel bad for their wives." Now Miriam, her sister-in-law, Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, heard that, and he's like, "Whoa, 1 second. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu separating? I'm a prophetess, and I'm married. Aaron, our brother, is a prophet, and he's married. What kind of deal is this?" Now let's remember that Miriam is the one who encouraged her parents to remarry when the decree was going on in Egypt. And Pare said that all Jewish children, Jewish boys, have to be thrown into the Nile River and be killed. So Amram, Moshe's father, separated from his wife because he said, "What's the point of having children? It's just a Pare should kill them, we'll separate." And Miriam, who was a little girl at the time, she came to her father and she said, "You're worse than Pare." That's a pretty harsh thing to say. So what do you mean I'm worse than Pare? Because Pare only has a problem with Jewish boys, but by you separating from mom, if we have a girl, you're stopping that also. So he said, "You're right," and he remarried her, and guess what? He had a boy, Moshe Rabbeinu. But as a result, many other families remarried because Amram was a kind of leader among the Jewish people, and when he did that, he separated, many others separated. And when he remarried, he actually paraded his wife, so to speak, through the streets with a white bride's dress, and as if she was getting married like a young bride. Many people saw it, and many Jewish couples remarried. So Miriam is the person that's all about marriage, and she's the one that's encouraging them to get together, and she's pushing, and she stood up to her father, even though she was a little kid, and she was harsh, and so on. And now she finds out that her brother, for some religious reason, apparently, is separating. So she turned to Aaron, and she said, "Do you hear that? Our brother, he's not married anymore." Right? Hashem was upset with them, and Miriam got tsaras. She got leprosy, and actually all the Jewish people waited until 7 days until she would be healed from the tsaras so they could travel. They wouldn't leave her alone because she has to be secluded from the rest of the camp and she couldn't travel. So therefore they waited, and it actually says this is a tremendous reward. She was rewarded that the entire Jewish people waited for her because she also waited. When Moshe Rabbeinu was a little boy and he was placed in the Nile River, she waited by the riverbanks to see what's going to happen with her brother. And as a result of her waiting, Hashem said, I'm going to reward you, and all the Jewish people are going to wait for you. Which obviously she waited a couple hours, maybe. And they waited a week. And she's one person, and they're 600,000 plus. So you see that the good, when Hashem rewards good things.
Where was she
When?
when they waited for her?
She was with the camp, but they didn't travel. They were going to travel, they didn't travel yet. Because she had to be secluded because she had Saras.
Oh, okay.
So you see that the Hashem rewards much greater than he punishes in a much greater measure. But back to our story, she got Saras because she spoke negative about her brother. What she did not know is the level of prophet that he is, and she shouldn't be talking like that about him to Moshe, to Aaron. If she has an issue, she could go to Moshe and say, hey, what gives? But why to come and badmouth him and speak negative about him to Moshe, to Aaron? So we learn from here, when Torah says Hashem was upset with them, plural, says Rabbi Akiva, you know who else he was upset at? Aaron. We know from Torah that Miriam got Saras. You should know, says Rabbi Akiva, that also Aaron got Saras. Because look, it says Hashem got angry at them. Who's the other one? It's not just Miriam. Omar Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said, just like he told them when he said that Sluflot was the one that was chopping the wood, he says, Akiva, this way or that way. In other words, whatever the case is, you're going to have to stand judgment. Why? Because if it's true that Aaron got Saras, Torah decided to keep quiet about that detail. We're not going to speak bad about Aaron. And you're coming and declaring that, hey, Aaron also was punished because he also spoke Lashon Hara. And if it's not true that he did it, let's say he's guilty, but Torah decided not to share it. So you're going to be punished you have to bear judgment for revealing who it is. Talking about Aaron's shortcomings, so to speak. And if it's not true, then Atam makes you Laz Ali Tzaddik. You're speaking bad about this great Tzaddik. He's innocent. Why are you saying that about him? V'alaksiv bum. He says, 1 second. It says bum. Akiva has a very good argument. It says Hashem was upset at them, plural. It's got to imply something. Torah said who it is. It doesn't say his name, but we know who it is. There's only 2 people there, right? So he says, Ahu bin Ezifa ba'alma. The Messiah says, Hashem was upset at him, but he didn't actually give him tsaras. He reprimanded him. He was upset. But he wasn't punished like Miriam was. And the reason is because Miriam, she started the conversation. She came along and she said, Psst, did you hear what happened? And again, she meant well because she was all about them couples being married, and she didn't appreciate his attitude, and she was the one that fought with her father, so to speak, that he should remarry her mother. And Moshe was born as a result of that, and now you're coming and you're separating. She meant well, but because she's the one that said it to Aaron, she gets saras, according to the Yehuda ben Beseira, and Aaron, Hashem was upset with him, but he reprimanded him. He didn't actually become tameh with saras and so on. Tanya Kiman the Amaraf Aaron Stana. And we looked at a brisa, according to which opinion, or how do you know that also Aaron had saras? Akiva says he got saras. The Yehuda ben Beseira said he just got a little talking from Hashem. What's the difference? How do you know that he got saras? We learn, it says Aaron turned to Miriam. Hey, she has saras. Where did he turn from? Literally it means he turned. But turn means he turns from his saras. First he realized that he has saras, and then he turned and he noticed that she had it. Now turning means he left that state of saras. So he had a short encounter with saras, according to this brisa, and then he noticed that she does. So he was healed sooner than Miriam from his saras because he didn't start the conversation. He was listening, and maybe he should have said something, but it doesn't get the same level of consequence as Miriam who brought it.
So he shouldn't have listened? He should have walked away? Or?
He should have said, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not judging him, but perhaps he should have said, he's Moshe Rabbeinu, he knows what he's doing.
Okay.
But again, he also felt that he should be married, I guess. Okay, Amar Rish Lakish. Here we have a beautiful teaching, which is very, very important. Rish Lakish taught the following. If you are accusing those that are innocent, you get punished. Or the way we learn it here, you get saras. Someone's innocent, and you don't give them the benefit of the doubt, and you go and just say, "Oh, you're guilty," or you accuse them of, I assume you did something wrong, or you say that someone's guilty when they're not, you get taras. Where do you see this from? What's this proof? And what's wrong to if someone's guilty, if someone's innocent? You shouldn't say he's guilty, but why do you get punished like that? It says, "V'heim lo yaminu li." Moshe Rabbeinu was arguing with Hashem when Hashem told him to go to Mitzrayim, take out the Yidden. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to go, and for 7 days there was a dialogue back and forth between Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, in short, or in a deeper sense, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted that it should end all exiles forever. Now, Moshe is from the tribe of Levi. He can't be Mashiach, and he knew he's not going to be Mashiach. That means there's got to be someone else who's going to redeem the Jewish people. So he told Hashem, "Shlach na biyad tishlach." Why should you send me? And this is like a half a redemption. We're going to go out of Mitzrayim, and there's going to be another problem, and then Mashiach's going to come. Just send Mashiach now. Send him to Mitzrayim and take him out.
Wait. Wasn't Moshe originally a Kohen? And became a Levi?
Yes, but either way, he's not from the tribe of Yehuda, so he can't be.
Yehuda.
Can't be
That's
Mashiach.
where Mashiach from his. Oh, okay.
Via King David. So, so one of the things he said was, the Yidden are not going to believe me. I'm going to come and say Hashem sent me. Then there's so much duress and difficulty and hardship. The guy's going to roll in and say, Hashem sent me, I'm taking out of Mitzrayim. It's going to be like, yeah, right. Hashem said, 1 second, you are accusing my children of not believing you? Yidden believe. Jewish people are born, we're Ma'aminim, B'nai Ma'aminim, we are believers, sons of believers, we have something in our genes, in our neshama that we believe. So even if you're not knowledgeable, even if you don't even know that you're Jewish necessarily, even whatever it may be, there's a certain deep ingrained faith that we have thanks to our neshama. It's by birth. Everyone has it. So Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, 1 second, how could you say that? Hashem knows that the Yidden believe. Amar Le told him, Elohim aminim b'nei aminim. The Ata ain't safe chalahamin. He said, you should know that they, the Jewish people, are believers, sons of believers. Don't say that, Moshe, about the Jewish people. They are believers. Now again, Moshe Rabbeinu did this. He was kind of provoking Hashem to say positive about the Yidden. And sometimes a leader will do that. He'll say something slightly negative with the goal of having Hashem stick up for the Jewish people. So he says, hey, they're not Ma'aminim. They're not going to believe. Hashem's like, what are you talking about? Of course they're believers, right? And it's a way of prayer. It's a Moshe Rabbeinu level type of thing to do. They're believers, sons of believers, because it says that the nation believed, children of believers, because it says he believed in Hashem. Ato ein seif cholahamin. But you, in the end, you're not going to believe. In other words, there's going to be a situation where you're not going to believe, and that is in regards to hitting the rock. So you see, Hashem said they believe. You're the one that's not going to believe, and in a sense, he's called not believing. Although there's an explanation for that. But when Hashem told him to speak to the rock, and the first time he said hit the rock, the second time he said speak to the rock, and the second episode Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, and that's considered to be not believing. Again, he believed, and he did it for the sake of the Jewish people, and again he put his life on the line for the Jewish people, and so on. But in a literal meaning, it's hey, he didn't really believe because he hit the rock as opposed to speaking to it. How do you know that he got punished for accusing the Jewish people of not believing? Which that's the point of the Gemara, to tell us that if you accuse a person who is innocent and you accuse him falsely, then you get punished, because Hashem told Moshe, put your hand in your bosom, and he did, and out came tsaras. Put it back in and it was fine. But he had this little encounter with tsaras because he spoke less than positive about the Jewish people, again for a good reason, but we learned from here that if someone is innocent, you better not say they're guilty. What?
Don't say anything.
Thanks for joining. Join us again soon. Lock it in, youtube.com/Rabbi Levi Nothing. Like, share, subscribe.